Well, hello there, and welcome back to the channel. Pleasant morning this morning. But I've got a bit of repair work to do. Here, let me show you. On my way down here yesterday, went to use the boat's horn, and well, it was a little bit intermittent, but then it stopped. Nothing there. So let's go and investigate, shall we? Now, a little bit of the history. The horn sits outside, or it's exposed to the elements in part. I'll show you in a minute where it's situated. So it does take a little bit of a hammering from the weather, but it's not all that old. I replaced it. The old one I got a bit rusty. It was with the boat when I bought it, and it needed replacing. It was well, it wasn't working properly. It was working, but not as well as I thought it should. So I replaced it, and that was about, I don't know, 18-20 months ago, something like that. So that should be working. In terms of the fuse, well, there's the fuse box down there. There's the fuse box. If I remember rightly, it's number 4 fuse for the horn, which is that one. That all looks intact. Plus, with this fuse box, if I just press the horn button, if the fuse is blown or the contact's not there, it shows a little red neon. So I know that the fuse hasn't blown. So that's the first thing out of the way. Now, the really tricky thing for me is the fuse box switch or button is at one end of the boat, and the horn is at the other end of the boat. It's under there. So as I'm on my own, it's rather tricky to test anything. Now we're here, the horn, incidentally, is under there. So it's protected in part from the weather, but not entirely. I've got connections here, and then the cable runs up the side of that window to where the tunnel light is. The horn has its own feed, which is, if I can get it, can you see my hand there? It's that one. That's the live coming through, and then the earth comes back, or the ground comes back here and joins with the ground from the tunnel light. Now, when I rewired that, I took the view that to run an entirely new ground cable right the way through the length of the boat, which is about 40 feet, wasn't necessary when there was already a perfectly good ground here on the tunnel light. So I connected the two together, bearing in mind the horn is an infrequent use, the tunnel light is an infrequent use, and they're rarely used together. So it's not as if it's putting extra pressure on the ground cable. But in the 18 months since I did that, there's been no problems at all. Cable's still in good condition. But what I'm going to do in the first instance is just switch the tunnel light on and make sure that the ground is working, so that can eliminate the earth for the horn. Right, well, that switched the horn light on. Let's go. Sorry, that switched the tunnel light on. Let's go and see if the light's actually working. Well, it's not easy to make out in in this bright sunshine, but I think we can agree that that's working. So that removes the earth from the equation. We now know that the horn has got a decent ground. That ground comes all the way back here to the ground bus bar. Now, one thing I would say, there's a bit of a rat's nest there of particularly earthing cables, grounding cables. I haven't completed the rewiring. A lot of it is nice and tidy and working properly. That bit isn't. So don't judge me on that. But that's where the cable comes back through. It comes the full length of the boat, all the way back through into that corner, through the bulkhead, and then it comes into the bus bar here. So the next thing to try is the horn itself. Is it working? We know the fuse is okay. We know the ground cable, the earth cable is working or is connected and got a good connection. So the next thing is to try the horn itself. Now, as I'm, switch the tunnel light off before the batteries go flat. As I'm here on my own, it's not easy to test it. So what I'm going to do is take the, remove the horn from the front, bring it to the back where I can connect it to directly to a power source, so to the earth and the positive. While I'm here, I can also connect it to the power to the button to make sure that the button's working okay, because again, it's an old boat. Sometimes these things just give up. So I want to test all of the options first. So next thing is to bring the horn back here so that I can test it and test the button as well. Now, as with most things, anything for an easy life. So what I'm going to do here is actually, as the horn is fastened to the bottom of the bench, is actually remove the entire bench. It's quite a faff to get, where is it, to get that unbolted from underneath. So what I'm going to do is remove the whole bench. So that's just a case of disconnecting those connections there, taking those bolts out, and voila, we have the horn there. Now, I don't know how easy you can make this out, but what I did to try and help protect the connections, it's a great horn, I love it, but it's not exactly very well protected at the back from the weather. So I cut the thumb out of a latex glove like that, where I can pass the cables through it and then fasten around it. But you can see there is sort of bits of rust around. Those connections feel pretty sturdy. These ones which connected to the main cabling, they're sturdy. So the next thing is to connect this up to the two bus bars and see what we've got. Now what I've got is a couple of simple lengths of cable with crocodile clips on the end that I can connect to any circuit, and this will tell me is the horn working. So I've got one end connected to the bus bar over there. This one I'm going to connect to this one briefly because it's noisy. Kind of a bit intermittent still, but it's working. Right, that's test one sorted. Now to test the button, what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave it connected to the earth bus bar, but the live I'm going to take all the way up there, connect to the back of the switch by removing the main power cable that goes right through the boat. So what I'm left with is the power that comes from the fuse box there. That goes all the way down, all the way along here, up to the switch. Then from the back of the switch, can't find it, there we are. From the back of the switch, this comes all the way down to the back of the horn. So now the switch is working. When I press this horn button, we should get something from it. So now we know the switch is working, the horn's working. So now I've got to go through all my joints on the cable that runs all the way to the front of the boat, and well, reconnect it first and then see if it works. Okay, let's go. Incidentally, on those test cables, you'll notice there were no fuses. That's because I use these cables for a multitude of things. Obviously the cable's big enough to cope with a lot of what's in the boat. Not the big powerful stuff, but a lot of what's in the boat, the circuits and systems. I don't fit fuses because none of them are left permanent. They're all temporary affairs, usually for a second or two, and that's it, just to test if something's working. As I say, when you're on your own, it's not always easy to test things the way you'd normally test it with a multimeter, because you can't get to both ends sort of thing at the same time. So right then, I've connected it back at the front. Those little junction connectors that are near the tunnel light, I've dismantled all of those. I couldn't show you because I can't video that, and they need two hands basically, and at the risk of dropping my phone in the canal, it's not going to happen. But I dismantled them all. They all look good. They're all clean. Yeah, I mean they're robust anyway. But anyway, yes, I've checked all those. They all look good. So the next thing is, if this doesn't work, then well, we could be looking at the cables right the way through the boat, which, well, I'm not looking forward to that at all. Anyway, let's just see. Well, I think we can put that down as a fail. So now I've got to think about where the cable went, where it might have chafed to cause a short. I did check the front cabin where it goes through the steel. There's no wear on that, so it's not shorting out against the steel cabin. So yeah, I'm going to have to look at some of the easy places, like under the sink. I know there's no conduit, it's not boxed in. The main boxing parts are through the bedroom and through the saloon, which, yeah, I hope it's not there, because that requires taking a lot of the panel into pieces. So let's go and have a bit of a think, and then I'll see you in a bit. While I was having a bit of a think, I remembered this rust around this rim, and although you can't really see it in there, it's not brilliant inside, and that doesn't look too bad either. But what I'm going to do is give that a bit of a spray with a Where's the other bit? There we go. A bit of a, with a WD-40, perhaps connect it up again and then try again. And I'll tell you for why. If that's a little bit rusty, don't forget this is at the end of 40 feet plus cable, and at the end of 40 feet you do get a voltage drop, and if this is a little bit sort of tight, if it's got a little bit rusty inside and it's a little bit tight, then that voltage drop might just be enough, because if you remember, it was working after a fashion. It was very intermittent and it didn't sound like it normally does, and that could be that it was actually trying to work, but because it was just a little bit tight, maybe with some rust, or I don't know, maybe there's a spider in there, I don't know, and it may be that that voltage drop was just enough to stop it working effectively. So I'm going to connect it up now. I'm going to cross my fingers and my toes and everything else, but I'm going to connect it up now and go to the back and press the button, see what happens. Well, that's a bit of a relief. It's also a little bit embarrassing, but at least it works. I did get to the back. I've got to come clean. I did get to the back, pressed the button, and there was nothing, and then my heart sank. But then I remembered that I'd actually disconnected, if you remember, to test the button, I disconnected one of the cables, the cable that came all the way to the front. So reconnected that, tried the button again, and as you heard, off it went. So I'm going to cover that over again. I'm also going to get some heat shrink on those connectors at the back on there. They're a little bit exposed, and we'll sort that out. Okay, back soon. Okay, well, I've put the latex glove back on the back. You'll notice that, bearing in mind, this is the bottom. This is the bottom when it's upside down at the moment. So that should be at the bottom, so it should drain any moisture that gets in there. Fastened it with the old faithful cable tie. These connectors at the back here, I'm going to put some heat shrink on first. Yeah, you probably won't see this very clearly, but and it's not perfect, but it'll hold the joints together at least. So there's the heat shrink. So let's put it all back together again. Well, there we go. We'll just go to the back, test it one more time, and then we can call that a success. I'm not sure whether the boat horn is a necessity in terms of boat safety standards. It certainly makes a lot of common sense to have one that works, and for me, even if it's not an essential, a necessity, if there's something on the boat, then I want it to work. So shall we give it a go? I think we can tick that one off. Okay, well, if this has been of any value at all, then give me a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to the channel, and if you want to know what happens next, then click on the notification bell. Okay, well, until next time, see ya.